That what?
I have a cat that's fully an indoor cat. He has no desire to be outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sylvia, are you recording?
Yeah, we started recording. Yeah. How do you want to start, Nate?
That's a good question. We are one short of a physical quorum, so we can't technically conduct any official business today until somebody else walks in the room. But I guess in the meantime, we could still cover certainly the business of the day, which is amendment number 7 in the 10-year plan. I don't think we can take action on the minutes or elect a new TAC chair until somebody walks in, an 8th person, in person. Oh, there we go. All right. Oh, now
I was just gonna text him and say, get in here.
I think we're good now.
5 minutes of scraping my window just screwed me up.
Oh, that stinks.
Well, now we do have an in-person quorum, so scratch everything I just said. We can proceed as normal. And
Awesome.
maybe Sylvia, maybe you can go around the room and can introduce everyone in person and then online.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so let's start with, well, I'm gonna do it the way I see it. In Chester Online, we have Andrew Haddock.
Present, and yes, for the minutes.
And from Derry, now we're seeing Liz from Derry. Liz Robideau, hey, how are
Hey.
you?
I'm good. Sorry, I couldn't be there. I've got mobility issues.
It's okay, we get it. Everybody's got something. It's okay.
Yeah.
Also online, but not a member, but nice to see you. We have Vincent Pagano.
Hey everyone, Vincent, Central New Hampshire Planning Commission.
Thank you. We have Jack Wade from DES.
Hey, good morning, Jack Wade, New Hampshire DES.
Thank you. And then we have a couple folks from the commission. We've got Suzanne
Morning, everyone. Good to see you.
and Cam Perlman.
Good morning.
All right, so sorry, that was an interesting way to do that. From Francistown in-house, we have Linda Kuhnhart, our hero of the day.
Are we approving the minutes too?
I don't think we've made a motion on that yet, have we?
I'm just sort of going around the room right now.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll do that next, yeah.
Present. All right, let's see. From Hooksett, we have Bruce Thomas. Thank you. Manchester, we have Maggie Baldwin.
Here.
And our newest person, we have Butch Laker.
Here, Manchester planning.
And then nobody from Ware, nobody from Wyndham. We have Angelique Pandolf from Easter Seals.
Good morning.
Present. We have Tracy Whitehead for CART.
Here?
And we have Lucy St. John from DOT.
Good morning, everyone.
And let's see, then we have a whole host of folks from the commission. We have Adam, Nate, Zach, Dave, and myself, and James. All right.
I think we're good. Okay. Do we have a motion to, I guess I will act as the temporary chair until a new chair is elected 5 minutes from now. Is there any motion to consider adoption of the August 15th minutes and notes from September 19th?
I'd also like to add approving the minutes of 7/18.
All right,
So that would be.
So that is July 18th, August 15th, and September 19th, and Linda has moved accordingly. Is there a second?
Second,
Sylvia seconds. All in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Lucy abstains for the record. Okay, we have a new item of business, which is electing a new TAC chair. Brendan McDowell, our former chair from Manchester, is now working with the State Office of Planning and Development. So he's no longer with the city of Manchester and therefore is no longer technically a member of our TAC. However, it looks like Maggie has expressed a willingness to step up and serve as chair on behalf of Manchester. So is there a motion to elect Maggie as the new chair of the TAC?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Hey.
for
the
Congratulations. And with that, I will yield the floor to you.
Great. So I assume we're just going down through the agenda items?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So the next one would be the overview of the TIP amendment number 7.
All right. Going to be hearing a lot from me today. Looks like on the agenda. So start with TIP Amendment 7. Okay. Can everybody see this online in full screen?
Yes.
All right, very good. TIP Amendment 7. Seems like we just finished with TIP Amendment 6, and that's true, we did, but we're already, no rest for us. We're already on to TIP Amendment number 7. I show this slide every time, and it's even more applicable today because we're going to be dealing with 2 of these things on today's agenda. So the slide showing kind of the project development process and how we program projects in the state of New Hampshire. We are talking right now about TIP Amendment 7. The TIP is a 4-year program. Generally, those projects that are closest to construction, and in general, the first 4 years of the 10-year plan comprise the TIP. But the TIP is amended far more often than the 10-year plan because there's a lot of moving parts with these projects as they are moving towards construction. And then we have our state requirement of the 10-year plan. So when something makes its way into the 10-year plan, it's the first formal funding commitment for that project at the state level. So we're going to talk about the 10-year plan next, but right now we're going to start with the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP Amendment number 7. So we are working with New Hampshire DOT on the preparation of TIP Amendment number 7. We anticipate opening our 10-day public comment period for TIP Amendment number 7 on November 11th, and that comment period running until Friday, November 22nd. And we will have a public hearing to consider adoption of Amendment number 7 at the November 26th MPO meeting. So you're getting a sneak preview of the project changes that will be in TIP Amendment number 7 when it's released next month. What are those project changes? So there is there's a significant paving project that's programmed for Candia and Raymond on Route 101. The start of that construction is going to be moved from fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. This is a state-managed paving project on 101, and the funding is being shifted to reflect the state's current schedule for that project. In Francistown, we have the rehabilitation of the Old County Road North Bridge over Collins Brook. This is going to see a funding increase for construction, but also inflationary increases for engineering and right-of-way phase work to reflect the current cost estimate for the project. Pretty straightforward. In Hooksett, somebody gonna let Becky in, I'll let her in. In Hooksett, there's a project to reconstruct the intersections of 3A and Hackett Hill Road and 3A and Main Street. Those two intersections are under the umbrella of a single project. That project is being removed from the TIP. It doesn't mean the project is going away. The project is still happening. It's just that expenditures on that project are not anticipated until fiscal 27 now. And fiscal 27 is beyond the current horizon of our current TIP. We are still working in the 2023 to 2026 TIP. So anything that's seeing expenditures in 2027 or beyond won't be included in the TIP. So the project still exists. It's not going anywhere. It's just within the TIP horizon, there are no anticipated expenditures. That is the same story for the Route 3 bridge, Elm Street Bridge over the railroad in Manchester. This project is being removed from the TIP. Again, not because the project is going away, it's because the project doesn't have any anticipated expenditures in the 23 to 26 time period. I know that there are discussions ongoing between the city and DOT about this project and what the ultimate schedule is. It currently is programmed for 2029. That could advance or delay depending on how the project development process goes in the future. But for right now, we know that there aren't going to be any anticipated expenditures within the 23 to 26 TIP horizon. So this will be removed from the TIP for that reason. Also in Manchester, this is the HSIP project, or is this a CMAQ project? Excuse me, CMAQ project to construct a northbound right turn lane and reconfigure the intersection of South Willow Street and West End Road. This is seeing an increase in construction phase funding, no change in timeline, just an increase in construction phase funding to reflect the current cost estimate for the project. Also in Manchester, the entrance to the Dairyfield School, the roundabout at River Road and Bicentennial Drive. This is seeing an increase in engineering phase funding in fiscal 25 to reflect the current cost estimate for the project. This is one of the more interesting projects, I think, in the TIP amendment. This is Eddy Road and Exit 6 southbound on-ramp intersection safety improvements. This was a project that was added at the end of the 10-year plan process 2 cycles ago. And it is essentially a precursor to the larger Exit 6 reconstruction project that is farther down the road, the Turnpike project. What's going to happen here, this project, it's in the current TIP, but it's going to see funding increases for engineering, right-of-way funding, and overall project cost, which is beyond which includes construction phase work beyond the TIP, is increasing as well. What's going to happen with this project? We now know in general what the concept is. Not far from here is the landscape supply company and the mobile station. There is the Eddy Road on-ramp onto southbound 293. You can only access that ramp from one direction on Eddy Road, although people do access it from the other way, even though they're not supposed to. That is going to be reconstructed to receive both directions of travel from Eddy Road. So that ramp is going to be reconfigured, and the other southbound on-ramp is going to be closed, the one that's just upstream from there. And then there will be apparently signalized intersections at the on-ramp of Eddy Road and Lorraine Street, as well as the intersection of Eddy Road and the southbound off-ramp. So both of those intersections will ultimately be signalized, and the Eddy Road ramp as improved, will be accepting both lanes of travel from Eddy Road onto 293 southbound. So fairly significant change in traffic operations for this part of the west side of
That
Manchester.
was so nice.
Yeah,
It's a mess over there.
it is,
Over.
you know, the improvement of the acceleration lane onto I-293 southbound should help a lot. That is much needed.
Dangerous.
I travel through there multiple times a day, every day, and it is pretty tricky right now. So this is a project that we're looking forward to in terms of safety. This is a new project appearing for the first time in the TIP. It's a red list bridge. It's actually a culvert replacement, but technically a red list bridge on Route 13 over Cochrane Brook in New Boston. This will be adding the project to the TIP because New Hampshire DOT wants to program some engineering phase funding in 2026 for this culvert replacement. So that 2026 is within the current TIP period. So we would be adding this as a new project for that reason. There are some statewide programmatic adjustments happening. One of those is to what's called the FLAC program, the Federal Lands Access Program. There are some shifting of engineering and right-of-way phase funding as well as construction phase funding within that program. We have to carry that in our TIP because it technically there is some FLAP eligibility for at least one roadway in the region. That would be the road that accesses the Everett Dam and Ware. To my knowledge, that is the only federal lands access roadway in the region that would be eligible for this, and that is not currently in the program. So everything in this program right now is happening in another part of the state. Most of it's in the White Mountain National Forest. But we carry it in our TIP because it's a statewide program and because there could potentially be funds in the future spent on Everett Dam access roadways.
There are some roads over there on that access system that are a mess.
Up north, you mean?
Well, in the where, I go that way a lot.
Oh, for Everett Dam,
They
yeah.
can use some things.
Yeah. Most of these funds are generally spent in the White Mountain National Forest area of the state. There are some funds, I believe, for a road safety audit for access to St. Gaudens National Historic Site in Cornish, if you're familiar with that. So it's not just White Mountain National Forest roadways, but most of the funds in this program end up being spent in the northern part of the state. There's also a programmatic adjustment to the 5307 program. 5307 is urban transit funding, urbanized area transit funding. There is a piece of that funding that is used, that comes in through statewide formula that's used for New Hampshire DOT projects. And so we are adding funding for fiscal 25 and 26 in that program to reflect what the anticipated apportionments are going to be in those years. So this adjustment comes directly from our colleagues at the Rail and Transit Bureau. There are two scope only changes as well in amendment number 7. These are really more kind of housekeeping changes. They don't affect the funding or the timeline of projects. One of those is in Londonderry on Route 28 and Stonehenge Road. The approved scope is operational and capacity improvements at the intersection of 28 and Stonehenge Road. The proposed scope is going to be operational and safety improvements at the intersection of 28 and Stonehenge Road. So a subtle change there, but the word capacity has certain meanings, and this is really more of a safety project as it's developed than a capacity improvement project. And then lastly, in Windham, the current scope is the intersection improvements at Ralston Road and 28 Rockingham Road. And it's going to be reconfigured to Ralston Road and Route 28 Rockingham Road intersection improvements. So really a fairly non-substantive change there in scope, but it is technically a scope change nonetheless, and we need to process it.
The comma?
Yes.
No.
Well, it's flipping around the order of the.
Some people have their way. It'll just be easier.
So this is a non-substantive change, obviously, but it's still technically a scope change, and so we must process it.
Okay.
Any questions on amendment number 7? All right, so you will see all of these changes in the amendment number 7 document. It'll be in your packets for the next TAC meeting in November, and we will move forward with it.
You don't want to take a vote while we have a quorum?
There's nothing to vote on yet. This is a sneak preview of what will be coming in November.
Just in case another
Yeah.
comment needs to be changed.
Yeah, we will formally recommend this next month to the MPO for adoption. Just getting a sneak preview today because we're not going to be able to spend a lot of time on this next month. So,
Okay.
Darn it.
yeah. Next month, we will be busy with other things at the TAC. So this will be something that we're probably only going to be able to spend a couple of minutes on in terms of making a recommendation to our MPO for adoption. So, but in the meantime, if there are any questions or anything comes up that you want clarification on as TAC members, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you the answers you need. All right, still with me. Okay, all right. Let me switching gears. We're gonna move to the 10-year plan now. Screen sharing and pause, all right.
I'm not the only one, Nate, that
Ah,
does this. Screen share.
Searches with.
all right.
Oh, I feel like I'm getting old.
Okay, can everybody see this in full screen mode online?
Yep.
Okay. 10-year plan update. And there are some updates. There's still a lot of moving pieces and parts with where we're at on the 10-year plan, but we'll walk through some significant updates. If you recall, at the last TAC meeting, we reviewed a lot of items related to the 10-year plan, the overall process, what the funding parameters are, what the evaluation criteria and weighting are, the engineering review process, the schedule for this update, and provided an overview about some of the projects that were submitted for consideration in this 10-year plan update. I'm not going to reinvent that wheel again today, although if there are questions, I can certainly answer them, but we covered that ground last time, and so we're going to kind of pick up from where we left off last time. This is the only thing that I'll note in terms of schedule. You may remember this schedule, September and October, where our projects are undergoing engineering review and initial evaluation. Last time we said November 2024 is when our short list of candidate projects is due to New Hampshire DOT. We now know that we've gotten further guidance, and November 8th is going to be our due date for our short list of 10-year plan projects. That's just over 3 weeks from today. So we're busily working towards that timeline. What is a short list in this context? A short list includes projects up to the value of the regional allocation plus 1 or 2 additional projects. So what can we fit in our regional allocation plus 1 or 2 projects? Our final set of regional priorities is not due until the end of March 2025. So we can make adjustments to our short list between November 8th and March 2025 in terms of which projects are priorities and things along those lines. So what we're submitting to DOT on November 8th is not our final set of priorities. It's a short list that we will work from. We reviewed at the last meeting 10 candidate projects, and we did submit 9 of those 10 candidate projects to our on-call engineering firm, VHB, for scoping and cost estimating. That work is going on right now. VHB is busily working on scoping memos and cost estimates for those projects, and they are end of October. We should start seeing some of the early scoping memos next week, but their timeline is to complete everything we've assigned to them by the end of October. The guiding principle I've been working under for this 10-year plan update is we know that we can't fund everything. Our regional allocation only goes so far. But we're working hard to think creatively about how to find a meaningful path forward for all of the candidate projects, whether or not those projects ultimately are included in the 10-year plan or not. And that means a couple of different things. We're looking at determining whether or not a project may be a better fit for another funding source. And there are a couple that I'll talk about in a few minutes that fall into that category. And we're looking at phased implementation approaches for larger projects. For instance, could we do a smaller version of the project as phase one right now, and then build upon that in the, a future 10-year plan update with future phases? Here are the projects that we received for consideration in this 10-year plan update cycle. There are 10 of them. After looking at these projects in some level of detail, we're still doing some evaluation. But at this point, we're looking at two buckets. The bucket on the left of 7 projects seem to make sense to pursue for potential 10-year plan inclusion. The 3 on the right appear to make sense to pursue other funding sources for. And I'm going to start with the 3 on the right, the Catesby Lane Bridge, Route 3 widening in Hooksett, and 102 safety improvements in Londonderry. So Catesby Lane Bridge in Bedford, we did assign that project to VHB for scoping and cost estimating. It's a local bridge on a local road. It's not the type of project that we normally would see in the 10-year plan as a regional submission in the 10-year plan, but it's important locally. And there are some characteristics about the bridge, particularly the hydrologic issues with that bridge and overtopping concerns, that we think may make it a candidate for a discretionary program called Protect. And so that, I think, is probably a more viable immediate path to pursuing funding than competing against the other regional projects in the 10-year plan process. So by assigning the project to VHB, we're going to end up with a good scoping memo and defensible cost estimate that we could work then with the town of Bedford to pursue Protect program funding in the next discretionary grant application for that. That, I think, and if funded through Protect, would happen substantially faster than going to the back of the line in the 10-year plan and waiting 10 years for construction. So I think it's worth taking a shot there with that. And so that's my initial recommendation for that project. In Hooksett, the Route 3 widening from Legends Drive to Hunt Street, we have assigned this as well to VHB. VHB has been asking me questions about this project. There are some intersections, particularly the Industrial Park Drive intersection, that may be a fit for different types of intersection treatments. What we suspect is that this is an 8-figure project and is not going to be a project that we can fit into our regional allocation, given the level of our current regional allocation. The approach I think that might make sense here is to get the scope and cost estimate from VHB, see what design concepts they've laid out for, in particular, the Industrial Park Drive intersection, and then refine those with the town and seek discretionary funding. Because of the size of this project, we probably are going to need to seek discretionary funding. It could be a candidate for the RAISE program, given the size of this project and the profile of Route 3, or potentially could be something that we pursue some funding through the CDS program, which is the Congressionally Directed Spending Program. Actually, ask for direct congressional appropriation for the project. It's difficult with the projects that are in the low 8 figures to fit those within our regional allocation because our allocation just isn't that high, unfortunately. So this may be one where, due to the size of the project, we're likely going to need to look at federal discretionary programs to get that project to the finish line. And then in Londonderry, Route 102, safety improvements, we have applied in partnership with the town of Londonderry for a road safety audit for this segment of 102 between Young and High Range Road. We think it makes sense based on conversations that we've had with New Hampshire DOT. We anticipate that road safety audit will occur in the first half of 2025. We have every reason to believe that. And at this point, it makes sense for that road safety audit to happen. The road safety audit will identify what the safety needs are, both in the short and long term for that segment. And then we can take the findings of the road safety audit and have one of two potential approaches to addressing this segment. The first would be to seek Highway Safety Improvement Program funding, which is a separate program of funding administered by New Hampshire DOT. The road safety audit process opens the door to HSIP funding. Or if the needs are too large for what could be accommodated by the HSIP program, then whatever the recommendations are, the road safety audit could become the basis of an application in the next 10-year plan cycle for 10-year plan funding. So I think there's a couple of different paths forward, potentially for the Londonderry project. Both of those are predicated on the completion of the road safety audit that we expect in early 2025. So at this point, we think that's on a good path to quantifying what the needs are through the road safety audit process, and there are a couple of potential funding paths there. Any questions at this point? Does this all make sense? Okay. So let's discuss the other 7 projects that may be the most viable candidates for 10-year plan funding in this round. The first one is Auburn, the 121 rail trail crossing. We have assigned this to VHB for scoping and cost estimating. I expect this to be possibly the smallest project that we've ever had for 10-year plan consideration, maybe in my career. This is probably a $50,000 rectangular rapid flashing beacon. I would be surprised if it's more than that. And on one hand, does it make sense for a $50,000 rectangular rapid flashing beacon to wait 10 years in the 10-year plan to go to construction for what is, but putting that question aside, this is a very low cost and probably very straightforward project in Auburn. So we'll see what VHB comes back with. But we may look for ways of partnering with the safety section at DOT to look and see if we can piggyback this location on other things that they may have happening through the HSIP program. In Bedford, the 101 multi-use path, I've been giving this one a lot of thought because it's probably the trickiest project that we have right now on for this 10-year plan solicitation. It's a clear and obvious need. It's a good project. It's tricky because we have this chicken and egg scenario of what is the future layout of 101 going to be? Is it going to be a 3-lane or a 5-lane cross section? And we don't know really the answer to that question yet. But that question drives how to design a multi-use path and what the cost of a multi-use path would be. And so 2 years ago, we put a project in the 10-year plan, which is now known as Project 13692F, to do an engineering study update of the 101 corridor so that DOT and the town of Bedford and key stakeholders could work together, look at the future of the corridor and determine once and for all whether or not it needs to be a 3-lane or a 5-lane or some hybrid combination. The previous study from 20 years ago recommended a 5-lane cross section. It's unclear whether or not there's support for that And there was a bridge replaced in that segment 2 years ago by New Hampshire DOT that does not accommodate a 5-lane cross section. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out there. We think it makes sense, and talking with our colleagues at DOT and with the town, we think there's an opportunity here to add some supplemental funding to that 13692 engineering study to explicitly include the multi-use path within the scope of work for that engineering study, and have that engineering study also carry a multi-use path to a 30% design stage. And that would meaningfully move forward this project and ensure that the design of any future multi-use path is fully coordinated with the future layout of 101, because right now we're guessing a little bit. We don't fully know and this is a way to not be guessing and have a clear design that everybody agrees upon in the future for how that multi-use path would look and function as it relates to the future layout of the corridor. So at this point, I think that's probably the best approach to the 101 multi-use path to keep that ball moving forward.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Well, just where is that path? What section?
Wallace to Amherst Town Line.
Okay, what about from Wallace back, the other direction?
Wallace back the other direction. So the Bedford's, I think the application here for the multi-use path was Wallace to the Amherst Town Line, and that's where the engineering study, Wallace, 101 on Wallace, yeah, right, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In Hooksett, the Hackett Hill Road and Exit 11 ramp intersection, we've assigned this to VHB for scoping and cost estimating. We actually sent out our staff collected a 12-hour turning movement count of updated turning movement data, and VHB has been doing some analysis. I fully expect, based on the turning movement patterns there, that a roundabout is going to be the preferred solution there. If you're familiar with that intersection, people coming off the ramps are making a left onto Hackett Hill Road, and people coming from Hackett Hill Road are making a right onto the ramps. And there's some turning movement traffic otherwise, but those are the dominant. A signal may create queuing that backs up into the toll booth area. In all likelihood, I anticipate that a roundabout is going to be what VHB proposes here. In Manchester, the Exit 8 Wellington Road improvements, this is when I talked about phasing at the beginning, we phased this project 2 years ago. We put a smaller version of the project in the 10-year plan that we could build upon in future phases. So here is a future phase, and the proposal is to build upon it to complete the envisioned remaining bicycle lanes to Lindstrom Lane. So this would be supplemental funding that we add to project 44221 for that purpose. And then also in Manchester, the engineering study of Beach and Maple Street, we have assigned that to VHB for scoping and cost estimating. I fully expect their cost estimate is going to be in the $500,000 range, in line with what the ATIIP application for that engineering study was. In New Boston, the town center improvements, as we're calling them, we have assigned the project to VHB for scoping and cost estimating. We have a pretty clear design concept already that has strong local support within the community. We did a context sensitive, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, before my time here, I was in another part of the state back then, but did a context sensitive solutions process with DOT and the town of New Boston. That was back in the 2008 timeframe. The design concepts that came out of that process are still very much embraced by the town of New Boston. And so this is seeking implementation funding for that. Lastly, in Wyndham, the Wyndham Greenway Trail, we have assigned this project to VHB for scoping and cost estimating. this is one where phasing likely will make sense. The full Wyndham Greenway Trail is 2.25 miles. It may make sense to. Mark Sunan is here, we'll let him in. It may make sense to divide this project up into phases and say perhaps do the first mile of the trail as a phase one and then build on that with a second phase in the future. It's also worth noting that DOT has announced, they haven't announced the solicitation materials, but they have publicly stated that a Transportation Alternatives Program solicitation, a TAP solicitation, is pending. We expect more details about that in the late fall. I would guess probably in the November timeframe, we'll start hearing more about the Transportation Alternatives Program solicitation. But that also may provide a secondary opportunity for the town of Windham to seek funding for this project. And that may even allow it to get done more quickly than the 10-year plan would. So there are a couple of options here, given that we know a TAP solicitation is coming in the next few weeks. So next steps, we don't have the final numbers yet from VHB for the cost estimates, but the Auburn, Bedford, and Beach and Maple Street engineering studies combined are probably less than $1 million. I would expect about $500,000 for the Beach and Maple engineering study. I would expect low six figures to add supplemental funding to the engineering study to consider the multi-use path, and I would expect about $50,000 for Auburn. Combined, those three projects are less than $1 million in today's dollars, which means that pending our final figures from VHB for the other 4 of the 7 projects, we anticipate that depending on phasing options, 5 or even 6 of those 7 could fit within the regional allocation. So thus our short list, which if you recall are the projects up to our regional allocation plus 1 or 2 additional projects. At this point, our short list is probably that full list of 7 projects, because we strongly suspect that 5, if not 6 of those 7 can fit into the regional allocation. So adding 1 or 2 additional projects to what we expect can fit in the regional allocation brings us to 7. We are going to continue working. I met with Linda and Liz yesterday as with their evaluation subcommittee hats on to brief them about where we're at right now. We will continue to work with Liz and Linda as our evaluation subcommittee to evaluate the candidate projects against the statewide 10-year plan criteria. That's a requirement that we need to do for every 10-year plan cycle. But again, we will have the ability to do final tweaks and adjustments to whatever priorities exist within our short list between now and March of 2025 before our final priorities are due. So a lot of moving parts here. I hope you're all able to follow along with those updates, but we'll know more in the coming weeks when those cost estimates come in. But I think with some creative thinking that we're trying to do right now, we should be able to move as many balls forward as we can, which is a good thing for the 10-year plan cycle. So I will stop there and open the floor to questions if there are any. I guess I've explained it all. All right. And you've heard enough from me for the last hour, so I'll go back to my seat now.
All right, so other business.
Just like to make a note that the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is currently in the process of collecting public input on transportation priorities for the plan update. The survey went live on October 2nd and it runs through November 15th. We've already had over 250 people complete the survey, which is really good participation. We'd love to see participation from every community within the region. and we'll continue to conduct targeted outreach to make sure that all towns are generally represented proportionally to their population within the region. But if you haven't seen this email come in for me, let me know. I'd like to make sure that you have it. If you can, put it up in a high traffic location within your place of business or office or town hall. Maybe even, transit, maybe get these in the buses or something. That would be great. And we'll keep pushing it through the remainder of the month. Thank you.
RPCs are been made aware of it's not website, there's the highways, national funding round, letters of intent are due to New Hampshire 13 by tomorrow. That information is posted on the website and there are additional requirements.
What was that for?
It's the National Scenic Highways.
And what's with the National Scenic Byway Program? I know I forwarded Adam something, but.
There's the notice of funding opportunity.
Oh, that's right.
Letters of intent to submit are due to New Hampshire by tomorrow, and then there's other requirements as well. That information is posted on the website and that is sent out to lots of people.
And Adam, have you worked with any of our scenic byway groups to submit something or?
There's only one act at this point. Anything already.
All right. So no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else?
Second.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time, for coming in. We appreciate it. We all know you're busy, so thank you so much. And please take some food on your way out. Share the calories. Thanks, everybody.
Like being in a room, eat my house is so beautiful. It's great to just sit there.
You can sit all you like.
It's very nice.
You have a wood burning stove or what do you have?
Yeah, it's fine in the kitchen, but I'm quite, thermostat down to 57 is my room and I can't do less than.
No, I broke down the other day.
Oh, I can't.
I broke down, yeah. I was like,
Oh, yeah, I can't
it
do it.
was like 61. I'm like, not enough of this. Yeah, yeah.
60, I'm 62. Because especially if you're sitting in front of the computer, you freeze.
And my fingers were cold, like.
We have my indoor, right?
Yeah, I just start crying. I'm like 68.
I knew winter was coming eventually.
68, yeah. I like to keep it.
Yeah.
Nate, I have a question about this.
Yeah.
So Kristen has received congressionally directed monies for some signal improvement
Mhm.
in the downtown area.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's gonna be funded through HUD.
Yes.
That sort of program doesn't normally go into the TIP, is that?
My understanding is we don't need to put it in the tip.